attention next March. But for now, we have an election coming up, a special election for sheriff this August, so we need everybody to turn out and vote. And I will serve as the moderator of tonight's forum. But before we get started, we are going to have Jessica and Hannah introduce the candidates. I see we have in person Mr. Wayne Clark. We have Dr. Tony Cummings. We have Mr. Ken Jefferson. And joining us on Zoom, we have Assistant Chief Lakeisha Burton, who I have been directed to say that she is ill and was unable to attend in person because of COVID. She is testing negative now, so she's on the way to feeling much better, but that is why she could not make it tonight. Otherwise, she would have been here. So thank you, Lakeisha, and feel better soon. With that, I will hand it over to Jessica, who I believe is on the Zoom, to give her introduction of Mr. Ken Jefferson.
Hey, Dave, I'm not sure why the picture's not showing, but I couldn't turn it on. I guess you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, so I'm president of Democratic Women's Information Network, and I am sorry that I could not be there in person, but I've been, I've contracted COVID as well, and I'm still waiting to get a negative test. I'm feeling much better, but I just encourage everybody to be cautious and careful, and please wear your mask, because we got a lot of work to do. We don't have time to be fighting COVID, okay? So everybody, please put those masks on. All right, so I'm here to be introducing Ken Jefferson first. For 24 years, Ken Jefferson served his community as a law enforcement officer with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Ken has mentored and educated police officers, both new and veterans, through his various leadership roles. Can you let her know as a federal program director in charge of drug education for youth, DEFY program. He taught and mentored the most vulnerable and at-risk youth in the community. The varied and diverse experiences Ken had during his career prepared him well for his final role, JAX Information Officer, in which he became the face of the department for 5 years. Ken has received numerous awards and has been praised by many agencies, including the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida, and more. Ken has served as expert crime analyst for a local news station, appearing commentary on current crime trends and crime prevention tips. Ken currently serves as the Providence School, Kaiser University, Rhoda L. Martin Cultural Center, and Changing Homelessness Book. Ken believes our community needs a sheriff who is not only richly experienced in the field of law enforcement, but is also deeply rooted in the community and is ready to work tirelessly to address concerns of each citizen who lives and works in our great city and county.
Thank you, Jessica. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Tony Cummings. In 2005, Tony Cummings earned his Doctor of Education in Organizational Leadership from Nova Southeastern University. He also holds a master's degree in Organizational Management and undergraduate degrees in Business Administration and Criminal Justice. Dr. Cummings received an honorable discharge from the U.S. Army in 1994 at the supervisory rank of sergeant and continued his law enforcement career in 1995 as a civilian by joining the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. In his career with the JSO, Dr. Cummings worked in both the patrol and detective divisions. His assignments included working as a field training officer, burglary investigator, undercover narcotics agent, crisis intervention officer, and missing persons investigator. He also provided ethics training to the community service officers. Dr. Cummings was awarded the 2012 Six Pillars of Character JSO Employee of the Year for his work in helping to save Jacksonville's youth from the streets, one child at a time. In addition to his investigative duties and responsibilities with the JSO, Dr. Cummings worked as an adjunct professor with a major Florida university in their Crime Scene Technology CST program.
Okay, next I have the pleasure of introducing Assistant Chief Lakeisha Burton. Retired JSO Assistant Chief Lakeisha Burton has served the people of Jacksonville for more than 2 decades. Lakeisha has worked in nearly every avenue of law enforcement during her 20-year career with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, 18 of which was in a supervisory role. She also holds a master's degree in criminology. Chief Berg has constantly worked in the neighborhoods that saw some of the most violent issues. She commanded Operation Ceasefire as well as Operation Set Streets. Both JSO initiatives focused on targeting violent offenders and building community relations. She also served as the executive director of the Police Athletic League, Jacksonville's flagship youth enrichment 501c3 nonprofit organization. Lakeisha is a woman of courage, conviction, and character. Her courage comes from deep faith. Her conviction is reflected in her determination to consistently do the right thing, and her character has been built over a lifetime of overcoming great challenges. In 2021, when the city saw an overall 4% reduction in crime, Lakeisha served as the zone commander over the Arlington Beaches area and led her officers to a record-breaking 60% reduction in overall crime. She is a proven leader who has delivered results.
Thank you, Jessica. So I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Wayne Clark. Wayne Clark is a lifelong Jacksonville resident, and he has been married to Carol for 38 years. Wayne Clark has a master's degree in public administration from Central Michigan University, and he is a graduate of the 231st session of the FBI National Academy. Wayne Clark started his law enforcement career at 18 years old with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in early 1980 and served as a volunteer police reserve officer, a corrections officer, a patrol officer, patrol sergeant, detective sergeant, patrol lieutenant, zone commander, narcotics division commander, and Patrol West division chief. Wayne Clark served as the chief of police for the Jacksonville Aviation Authority and at the Duval County School Police Department, retiring as the chief of police in September 2021. Wayne Clark was the commander of Operation Safe Streets from 2007 to 2010 and led JSO's efforts to reduce murders, violent crime, and the fear of crime in Jacksonville to a 25-year low. All right.
All right, let's hear it for the candidates. Fantastic. So we have a tight timeline tonight, so let's get started. Our program this evening is a candidate forum, not a debate. That means that candidates should not address each other directly and may only briefly reference another candidate's records or policy objectives. Each candidate will begin the forum with a 2-minute opening statement momentarily. Throughout the evening, out of respect for all candidates, as well as all of you in the audience, and in the interest of time, candidates will be notified if they've exceeded their time allotted to speak or otherwise violate the rules of the forum. We'd again like to thank all 4 of these great candidates for participating today. We will present each candidate in alphabetical order. And this evening, we will start with retired JSO Assistant Chief Lakeisha Burton, who will make her opening statement. Ms. Burton, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can I put my check really quick? Can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Thank you for allowing me to participate via virtual. So, hello, my name is Lakeisha Burton, and I want to be your next sheriff because, frankly, it's time for change. It's time for us to have a sheriff who will be on the front lines fighting for all of us, and I am a fighter. For 24 years, I have fought to combat crime. I've fought fiercely for victims of crime, and I have fought for prevention of crime, and I'm committed to continue that very fight every single day as your next sheriff. After 24 years of experience, I know what law enforcement, I know what law enforcement is. Not only do I know law enforcement, I know how to lead. And I also know that the number one concern to citizens all over our city is public safety, and it should be. Because every single day, violent crime touches all of us. We see it, we hear it, and we feel it, and it's been going on for far too long. As a matter of fact, it's worse, and it's unacceptable. It's time for change. Last year, we saw a breakthrough citywide, and under my leadership as a zone commander in the Arlington Beaches area, my officers and I delivered a 16% reduction in crime. Just imagine how we can change our city, our quality of life, and our future when we do this all across our city. It can be done, and I'll get it done as your next sheriff. JSO has changed so much over the last 5 years. 70%, over 1,000 police officers have been hired. They have 7 years or less on the streets. So we're working with younger, more innovative, and officers that are working with the latest technology. They need a new type of leader. A leader who's gonna focus on the culture of this police department from the inside out. A leader that's gonna focus on service to our entire community. And a leader who's gonna focus on reducing violent crime in all parts of our city. Reputation, record, and results matter in this race. Your vote matters. My name is Lakeisha Burton, and I'm asking for your vote to be your next sheriff.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Next, we will go to, please welcome, join me in welcoming Mr. Clark to give his opening statement.
Thank you, Joshua. This is arguably the most important election since consolidation. As we look back over the last 7 years, Jacksonville has been going through some tremendously terrible times when we look at the violent crime and the murder that's been affecting our city. The issue has been an issue of leadership or the lack of leadership. When I look back over my 40-year career in law enforcement, 30 years at the sheriff's office, 4 years at the airport, 6 years at the school police department, I've been able to go out of the box to be able to come back to the sheriff's office with out of the box ideas. I look at the other candidates who are running for sheriff, all they know is the sheriff's office. They've all worked for me during my time at the sheriff's office. Whoever we choose as sheriff will come in with a steep learning curve. They must be ready to go to work on day one. When we look at the issues of a $540 billion budget, they must have the acumen to understand how to put together budgets. I did that when I was at JSO. I did that at the airport. I did that at the school system. When we look at coming up with a comprehensive plan, when we look at what happened this last weekend with all the murders across the city, they used to say it was a north side problem or a west side problem. When we look at the shootings and the murders that's happening in this city, and there are maps out there that I put out, you can see, this is a Jacksonville problem. It's going to take a Jacksonville solution to solve it. If we want to be that one city, we must come up with one comprehensive plan. We need a leader that's bold, that's ready to go to work, to lead the sheriff's office, to reduce murders, to reduce violent crime, to reduce the fear of crime, and to make sure that we build trust in our communities, ready to go to work on day one. A bold city needs a bold sheriff who has the political will to think out of the box, to make sure that Jacksonville is safe and all communities can contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. The next speaker will be Dr. Cummings. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tony Cummings to give his opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Tony Cummings, and I am excited about this upcoming election, as you should be. Back in 2015, I stood on the stage at Jacksonville University against the former sheriff, and I looked into the camera and I told everyone in the city that the city was hemorrhaging from violent crime at the time, and that we need to have a robust plan to actually deal with it. Well, the former sheriff said, hey, give me 200 more officers and give me more of your tax money and you can make the city a lot safer. Since then, you've given the sheriff 200 more officers, going from 1,600 officers to 1,800 officers. The budget went from $386 million at the time to now $502 million. We broke back-to-back murder records in 2019 and 2020. In 2019, you saw 162 homicides. In 2020, you saw 176 homicides. We had 3 consecutive years of more than 100 murders back-to-back-to-back. We've had 400 shootings each year, folks. Thank you. Your city is 6th in the nation, not statewide, in the nation, folks, in traffic homicides. We can do better than this. I have a plan that puts the missing link of the puzzle together to drive down violent crime, and that's you, the public. A public accountability office inside the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is a game changer, folks. It allows the public to have a group of their peers, funded by the Department of Justice, so it would be separate from the city's budget, to actually have accountability and oversight of our operations as the sheriff roll out those resources. That 80% of that $500 million goes to manpower, which is the salaries and benefits of the officers. 80% of that budget is salaries and benefits of the officers, guys. Think about that. So what you do with those officers matter. And having oversight, having the public at the table to help us redirect those resources will go a long way in driving down violent crime in this city. Thank you. I'm Dr. Tony Cummings. I look forward to speaking to you this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Cummings. Next, our final candidate, alphabetically, of course, is Mr. Ken Jefferson. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jefferson tonight.
Thank you, Joshua. And I'll start off with a bit of breaking news. I am a resident of Duval County. My name is Ken Jefferson, and I'm a lifelong resident of Jacksonville, Florida, born and raised right here, educated through the public schools. I have a master's degree in theology and I have 2 honorary doctorate degrees. I had the honor and the privilege of serving with the Jackson Sheriff's Office for 24 years. I am a graduate of leadership Jacksonville as well as life work leadership. I have remained constant and relevant in our community, even after I retired in 2010, being active on various boards, active with various city committees as well. I'm a part of this community. I love this community. I'm concerned, just like you are, that's why you're here. I'm concerned about the state of Duval County, about all of the citizens here in Duval County. What citizens are calling for everywhere I go, every place I visit, every town hall that I hold, every barbershop that I talk to, they're concerned about the same thing. The violence, about crime in our city is concerned about transparency. As your new sheriff, the very first day in office, I will sign a memorandum of understanding, MOU, with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and have them investigate all police involved shootings as well as all in custody deaths, so that we can begin this period of transparency within the Jackson Sheriff's Office, so we can restore the trust back to the community. Because right now, ladies and gentlemen, our community is fractured. But no matter where you live, our community is fractured. We must repair it. It took a while for it to get this way. It's going to take some time for us to repair it. But when we work together, when we come together for a common cause, you all are the ones that help solve crimes, not the police. The police don't do it. We cannot do it without you. So I look forward to bringing this community together as a new sheriff, fracturing the torn relationships, and making Jacksonville a better place. My name is Ken Jefferson, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Now let's get to the questions. Candidates will have an opportunity to answer questions in rotating order and have a minute and a half to answer each of the following 4 questions. These next 4 questions were submitted in advance to each candidate from members of DWIN and the Beaches Democratic Club. Starting with Assistant Chief Burton, this first question is from Linda Chipperfield of the Beaches Democratic Club and Joy Burgess of DWIN. The question is, what specific changes would you make within JSO to prevent the type of excessive force used on George Floyd or Michael Brown? And what strategies will you employ to listen to, engage, and involve diverse Duval County residents in JSO decision-making around any officer's behavior that leads to the death or inappropriate treatment of Duval County residents. Ms. Burton, you have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Let me just start off by just saying that the job of disciplining officers is the responsibility of the sheriff. So that will be my responsibility. Accountability must come from the top, and it must be executed at every level of our agency. So I believe that having open and honest conversations with our citizens is what led to my success as a zone commander in the Arlington area. And as sheriff, I will continue to be visible, accessible, and accountable to the people. So, but I do believe that training is always and will always be essential to this effect. I will maintain the duty to intervene policy, which is a current policy at the sheriff's office. And I will make sure every officer knows that reporting such incidents, that they will not be receive any repercussions for stepping up and speaking up against officers who are not doing the right thing. But also I will increase the ongoing trainings in de-escalation, as well as mental health first aid training throughout our agency.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Next, Mr. Clark.
Thank you. What happened to George Floyd was a devastating tragedy, and we must take every step to ensure something like this never happens again. We must find a way to include the community in our policy development, consistent with best practices, and we must make sure our policies reflect the expectations of the community for a compassionate and professional law enforcement agency. I'll talk about this a little later when the question comes to talk about my Sheriff's Internal Oversight Committee, which is a committee of people that I would use to look at situations to help me to develop policy, because a lot of times in our profession where we may be deemed legally justified, it may be lawful, but it's awful, and it doesn't fit the consistency of what we expect out of our officers in our community. And let me say that we must hold our officers strictly accountable to ensure that only force that is necessary is used to apprehend suspects. We must train our officers to show constraint and use de-escalation techniques prior to using force. All officers must be held accountable to restrain other officers who are going outside of policy and the use of force, to include officers physically engaging and stopping the officers from violating our use of force policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Dr. Cummings.
Thank you. Excellent question. One thing I'll tell you, 9 minutes and 29 seconds. I agree with the other officers when they say we have to find ways, but unfortunately, there are many, many ways to deal with this issue that are being ignored by the current establishment as we speak. What I'd like to see happen is to make sure that the public holds us accountable. Here's what happens. The reason why the officers did not intervene in the George Floyd situation is because they were fearful of their union. They're fearful of their colleagues. The thin blue line is just as deadly as the no snitch rule out there on the streets. It exists, folks. It exists. So if you're waiting for the officers to actually turn on one another, you're going to wait a long time. That's unfortunate, but it's true. It's not that they don't want to do the right thing, they're just fearful of doing the right thing. But we will do the right thing if we have oversight from the public. Now, Fort Myers, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta, they were bold enough to go forward with these initiatives. A public accountability board, civilian review boards, I support that. I'm the only candidate to support those 2 initiatives. That is a game changer, folks, in Duval County if you want to drive down crime and hold the officers accountable for their actions. 99% of our officers don that uniform every day to keep you safe, and they do a tremendous job. However, it's that 1% that we need those accountability boards for, and I'm going to put you at the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cummings. And Mr. Jefferson. Sure, the question was, what specific changes would you make within JSO to prevent the type of excessive force used on George Floyd or Michael Brown? And what strategies will you employ to listen to, engage, or involve diverse Duval County residents in JSO decision-making around any officer's behavior that leads to the death or inappropriate treatment of a Duval County resident?
This all revolves around leadership and accountability. Those are the two main factors in maintaining a culture of excellence. It starts at the top, transformational leadership from the top. By example, one of the areas that I had the honor of serving in during my 24-year period was that of an academy staff instructor. By the time a cadet reaches the academy, he should have gone through enough rigmarole, if you will, to say that this is a perfect candidate to become a police officer. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So as your sheriff, as part of my remedy, I would do have a more extensive background check done, because I sat on the order review boards, I did the background investigations, I taught at the academy, I did everything to screen an applicant that the applicant has to go through before. But what you can't dig out of that person is their character. If they don't have it coming in, you can't give it to them. You can't make them have it. So it must start with the background, it must start with the training, but most of all, it must start with the leadership. And as your leader of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, I will ensure that our background investigators are doing, they go back 10 years now. They'll go back a little bit further. They'll dig a little deeper. We'll go into the soul of that individual to see if and determine if this is the profession for them, because everybody can't do this job. Everybody can't come into this profession. It has to be a calling. It has to be a passion. You can't wake up one day and say, I want to be a police officer, and not knowing what you're walking into. So as a leader of the group, I will ensure that those persons are well vetted.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. If y'all can speak up just slightly for the members in the back, it would be really helpful. Unfortunately, you can't really come to the mic, or else you'd be off the camera. So this next question number 2, is we'll start with Mr. Clark. It comes from Amanda Nelson with Interfaith Coalition for Action, Reconciliation, and Empowerment. The question is, other communities have adopted civil citations for adults for minor, nonviolent offenses. In Jacksonville, the state attorney offers a post-arrest diversion program for driving with a suspended license. Would you work to develop a pre-arrest civil citation program here in Jacksonville?
Yes, I am in favor of the adult civil citation. I was a part of a group in 2008 that worked to bring the juvenile civil citation to Jacksonville, and the adult civil citation is identical in format. For many years, I and others have been trying to get the adult civil citation program here in Jacksonville for nonviolent misdemeanors. The main resistance recently has come from the JSO. In 2019, Florida passed a law that allowed adult civil citations in all communities. I've spoken with the state attorney and the public defender who are on board with this program, and I commit as sheriff that I will sign up to make this program a priority for our agency. This program goes a long way in keeping those out of the system that do not belong to the system, and will go a long way to alleviate the overcrowding in the jail. A last benefit of this program is that it will save the taxpayers a tremendous amount of money due to the decrease in jail arrests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Dr. Cummings.
I didn't even have clip notes. I am very much in favor of an adult citation program and an increase in the youth civil citation program to about 90 to 95%, because, look folks, we need to give each other a second chance for minor offenses, non-violent offenses. Right now, we spend about roughly $5,000 when we process an individual through the Duval County Jail, as opposed to issuing a civil citation, which is about $300, $400. Can you see the cost savings there and what we can do with that money elsewhere in the community if we go ahead and we're bold enough to implement those initiatives? And besides, remember that murder rate I told you about on my opening statement? I need some space in the jail to deal with those characters. Okay? And we don't need to be locking up citizens on minor violations, non-violent violations. Okay? And we can use that space in the jail to go after those folks that are hurting your loved ones. And I'm going to do just that. Now, our issue with the civil citations, a lot of folks say, well, it's soft on crime, it's a soft on crime approach. We got to get away from that mentality, folks. It's not a soft on crime approach to give a person a second chance. It's just not. It's common sense policing, community policing is taking care of one another. And as your sheriff, I will ensure that all 1,800 deputies under my command will make sure they take care of you.
Thank you, Dr. Cummings. Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you. Without a long drawn-out explanation, commentary, yes, I'm in favor of adult civil citations, simply because, ladies and gentlemen, we can't arrest our way out of this problem. So we can't overload the jail with the minor offenses that take up that space, that cost us money, and it makes the person who did that minor offense very miserable, and it follows them for the rest of their life. We don't need that in our city. We don't need that in our county. Let's go ahead and enact the adult civil citation for minor offenses. Give it to them. If they don't abide by what the citation calls for, then we'll take enforcement action. But at least you won't have to go to jail for those minor offenses. Because if I was to ask you all to show your hand, by show of hands, how many of you have ever committed a minor offense that you got away with? I said, I want you to hold your hand up. But I would hold my hand up, be it a traffic offense or something else that's very minor. So I am totally and unequivocally in favor of adult civil citations for minor offenses. Let's give everybody an opportunity to have a second and or a third chance.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. All right, and last to answer this question, Assistant Chief Burton. Can you unmute yourself?
Point to your ear.
That's not it.
Click over and just try to ask to unmute.
There you go.
Well, there you are. Yep.
Sorry
Go
about
ahead, Miss.
that.
Sorry. Ms. Burton, you may go ahead.
I think the other candidates are all saying the same thing. So yes, I will support adult civil citations and work with other criminal justice partners to implement a program specifically for first-time offenders for nonviolent and victimless crimes. I think there's enough tangible data in other agencies using this model, and it has been successful, not to mention the cost savings, alleviating the jail overcrowding issues that the jail has had for many, many years. But giving someone a second chance to make their life right, I support that. And I wish I would have had that opportunity when I was 19, when I was arrested. So I certainly agree with giving someone a second chance. But also, I think it's important that people know that this program will not be a freebie system. You know, we have to make sure that there will be strong consequences for those who do not complete the conditions of the citation. So I think that's very important.
Thank you so much. So going to question number 3, we will start this question with Dr. Cummings. This question comes from Philip Miner, a member of the DWED. As a veteran police officer in the Duval County Sheriff's Office, what are the 2 to 3 challenges you are aware of that need immediate action by the sheriff? And what's your plan and timeline to address them?
Excellent question. I'm not worried about that timeline. I'm worried about that time. We're going to deal with these murders, folks. The homicide rate is way too high in this city, and it's been too high for so long. We have been labeled the murder capital of the state of Florida since 2012. That's before the pandemic, folks. That's before the violent crimes sparked the nation that you see all on the nightly news. We have been there and experiencing it. We've been traumatized by it for far too long, folks. But I cannot do it alone. I have to have you there. I have to have you holding me and my administration and my officers accountable. This is a game changer. That public accountability office is that important. It really is. Secondly, we got to deal with these traffic homicides. You know, the folks who are going around speeding and taking over our roadways, we need to do some aggressive enforcement on those fellas. And we will do just that, to drive down that traffic homicide. 6th in the nation, wow, I still can't wrap my arms around that. And third, which probably should be first, rebuilding that trust between the police and the community that's broken, especially in the areas that are hardest hit by the violent crime. You know, when I think about the victims of violent crime, I hate to keep repeating numbers, because numbers are important, but the numbers have names. They have faces. They have people, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, and loved ones that are stacked over there at the MD's office on Jefferson Street. And I want those numbers down in this city. We're the first coast. We're the bold new city of the South, so let's be bold to do this, folks. I need your backing in this election to put you at the table so we can get this thing done.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? So my first three parts will be to address the gun violence that's in our city, all over our city, no matter where you live, across the ditch, JAX Beach, Atlanta Beach, Neptune Beach, all the other side as well. We must get a handle on the gun violence that's here. As your sheriff, I will advocate for stiffer penalties with regards to gun violence. I'll go into real detail later with that, but I will be an advocate for all of the gun violence that we have here. The second thing as a priority would be accountability. Accountability of the sheriff, accountability of the officers. I will bring transformational leadership to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. That means it starts from the top. I will be out there on the streets with my officers from time to time. I know that that's not really what I'm supposed to do, but I will. Uvalde, Texas would never happen here in Jacksonville, Florida, with the men and women of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, where they will not respond to a mass shooting or anything where they're not serving and protecting the public. And the third thing is transparency. As I said before, my first day in office, but during my first 100 days, I was signing an agreement with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, transferring all of the investigations of police-involved shootings and in-custody deaths over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement as a third body, impartial body that's investigating. And I will also empower a commission of citizens, which would be high school students, college students, as well as the community, to help us better ourselves as police officers of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Assistant Chief Berg.
Okay, here we go. So transparency, accountability, and one of the main challenges that I see is this idea that in order to reduce violent crime, that you either have to have law and order or implement community policing, and it can't be one or the other. It has to be both, and I think that's where we are failing today. So I have an integrated public safety model to address violent crime. So when I'm sheriff, we will build on its proven success that I've already shown as a zone commander and expand it citywide. My approach to address violent crime is from a comprehensive approach, addressing 3 C's: culture, community, and crime. So you'll hear a lot of what the plans are that other people are going to plan to do. I'm going to be offering the voters what I've already done. This model delivered a 16% reduction in crime across the board, and it will work all over our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Yes, what we need to do is first quickly develop a comprehensive plan to deal with the murder and violent crime across the city. We next need to look at a way to build trust in our communities, because in order for us to do our job, we need to gain that trust, and they give us that real-time intelligence in our community. We need to build programs for our youth, to engage our youth so that they don't get into trouble, because they are a big contributor to some of the issues that are happening in our community. We need to come up with a campaign for high visibility for the sheriff being out in the community, the sheriff staff being out into the community. We need to make sure that we pick an executive staff that share the same vision, that we want a better and safer Jacksonville, making sure that I call them my 5 principal pillars of trust, accountability, accessibility, compassion, and transparency is used in everything that we do. We need to quickly analyze the budget and look at our personnel to make sure that we have the right people in the right places, and then realign those personnel so that we can have the appropriate number of officers out in patrol, and that we can realign our investigative division to make sure that we can solve some of these murders. You know, you may have heard that we're at a 29% solvability rate of homicides. We need to do a better job of making sure that we have the right people in the right places to make sure that we change the violent crime situation in the city and solve some of the murders that we have unsolved in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And then now we're going to move to our final prepared question, which will begin with Mr. Ken Jefferson. This question is from Joy Burgess of D1. If elected to be JSO sheriff, what strategies will you use to promote increased transparency between JSO, the media, and Duval County residents?
So again, one of my roles with the Jackson Sheriff's Office is that of the PIO, or the Public Information Officer, or in late terms, the spokesman for the department. I served in that area for 5 years. I was named the spokesman of the year for the entire state of Florida for 2 consecutive years, unmatched. As your sheriff, I will maintain a liaison between the Jackson Sheriff's Office and the public, so that you can be informed of everything that's going on. Of course, we have body cams, and you all have your own cell phones that you videotape a lot of police activity that's going on. But as a sheriff, we must improve our relationships in the public because it's fractured right now. That relationship is fractured. So as your sheriff, I will be out in the community. Not only I, but my senior staff will be out in the community. We'll be walking, talking, meeting, greeting, trying to build that trust back up, trying to build a relationship, because at the end of the day, crimes are solved by you, the community. It's not solved by the police. It's solved by you. So we'll have a more transparent agency, because I'm on a panel of commission, as I was saying, of citizens conformed of high school students, college students, faith-based community, business leaders, and everyday citizens, so that every other month or quarterly, we will meet, and you will grade us. You let us know what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, and give us suggestions as to how we can better serve you. So as your sheriff, you will be actively involved in the process of everything that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Chief Berg. There you go. You're good.
I have it. Thank you so much. So we're going to be talking about transparency a lot, over the next several weeks leading up to the election. Because transparency is critical to any success we're going to have to drive down violent crime. As your sheriff, I'm committed to being visible, accessible, and accountable to you. And I know that much of the transparency concerns stem from how JSO has handled officer-involved shootings and the limited information that they have provided to the community. So I too will be looking at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to oversee the investigations while I stay committed to keeping the public informed of that progress. So in reference to our media partners, they are also an important, they're important to this effort to make sure that the public is aware of all the critical issues that's taking place. And I want you to know that I will not treat them as adversaries, because there's we see that a lot going on, and we have to begin to build strong relationships with all of our community partners. So they too are very important. So I'll ensure that they have what they need to help us successfully do our jobs. So, and as far as the community, you will see me, you will feel me. I will be out on walks in the neighborhood meetings, and I'll be very involved in our redesign of our Sheriff's Watch program. And that is how I will address specific needs of each community. I recognize that every neighborhood is different, and we have to really provide a customized approach to how we address the issues that citizens are concerned about. And I'll do that as your sheriff, and because we need a sheriff that understands all the needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Yes, thank you, Joshua. So one of the things that I plan to do is I call it my Sheriff's Internal Oversight Committee, which will be a group of citizens that will be professionals from the community as well as lay people to come in after the fact and look at situations and make recommendations of policy changes to me as sheriff, and if those changes make sense, we will put them into operations. We talk about transparency in office-involved shootings and in custody deaths. What I plan to do is to sign a memorandum of agreement with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. MOUs are an old policy. They're not legally binding, but a memorandum of agreement is a binding document. Once we figure out the costs and the associated things, I want to make sure we do that so that everything is legal. We can't change as we get down the road. If it's not going my way, I can't sway them. We agree and we go forward with it. I want to allow access by inviting citizens and the media to come to the sheriff's staff meetings, come to my crime meetings, come to training, come to other things like that so they can see how we do what we do. We're not ashamed of that. And as the last thing I would like to do is partner with one of our local motor coach companies to get a mobile motor coach to have a mobile office for the sheriff, to be able to come out of the sheriff's office, park that thing around town, and just put out, hey, the sheriff will be over here, come have a glass of cold tea, come have some coffee, maybe cook some hot dogs. You can come and meet me, I'm accessible. That's what I plan to do to add transparency when I become the next sheriff. Thank you.
Transparency. The problem with, as I see it, problem that we're having in this community with transparency is that we haven't, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office hasn't done a great job over the years of rolling out our policies and procedures and how we go about our daily business to the public. We don't push out information and data in real time that you can use inside your neighborhood because we always talk about manpower shortages, but we don't empower the community to actually take action, okay? You can take action. That's that force multiplier that we always scream about that we need on the force. The force multiplier is always you. It's always been you. But we have to make that connection with it. Also, we haven't done a great job of showing the public how we derive some of those decisions that we make to push those resources out in your community to keep you safe. You've done a poor job of messaging, folks. Very poor job. I want to change that as your sheriff. As far as the media is concerned, I want to give scanners back to the media because that makes us better. I'm not afraid of it. I have bad press days. It's going to happen. That's how you grow and you learn from it. I also want to revamp the public information office, that office that you depend on, get that information out to the media so the media can get it out to you in real time so you can do something with it. I don't want to wait till after the fact. I don't want you to wait around for the sheriff to brief you on information that you put out to us that we didn't do anything with, and then we want to pretend that we did something with it. We're going to change that process, folks, and with your help on August 23rd, we'll start the process of electing a sheriff that's on your side.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your thoughtful answers on those first 4 questions. And now we're getting into what I like to call the lightning round. It's going to be a little fun. We are now going to allow a couple of questions from the audience as time permits. We only have time for about 4 questions, and each candidate will only have a minute to answer the questions. During this section, we'll start in reverse order. So Mr. Jefferson, you will start this round, followed by Dr. Cummings, Mr. Clark, and then Assistant Chief Burton. Each question will then rotate. So do we have any questions for the candidates? Dr. Stotts, you want to come up here and use the mic?
That's okay.
Okay.
So we've heard a lot about transparency in the budget, and I don't really want to get into those deep weeds, but someone mentioned Duval, and I'm sure every single one of us is horrified about what happened. You also talk about bringing in people and what people feel, and I know as a person, I'm really struggling with the assault weapons that are out there and about this concept of an open carry being pushed by many of our legislators. And I realize you don't have the power to change that, but I would like to hear from each of you. What is your opinion about assault weapons to private citizens for their personal use, not in the range, and the other issue being the open carry? Thank you so much.
Thank you for that question. I am a proponent of the Second Amendment. I think that you have a right, as the Constitution allows, to bear arms. However, assault assault weapons. The majority of the mass shootings that we've seen all over the United States have occurred with assault weapons. I am not for open carry, period, in Jacksonville or here in Florida, period. I like the concealed weapon permit that you're allowed to carry your weapon for your protection. Had it not been for an individual, just this past week, who had a permit to carry a weapon, there would have been more people killed in that mall. So I'm against the legalization of just having assault weapons to be able to carry them around just like you do everything else. The best defense against a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Thank you, Dr. Cummings.
That's an excellent question. I tell you what, I'm a gun owner, and I do believe in the Second Amendment. But I'm appalled, just as you are, about what I saw on television. Our children are being slaughtered, folks. What are we doing? Honestly, this is a real conversation. We have to have a debate about raising the age to buy an assault weapon. If they would release those pictures of that video in that classroom, you see those children liquefied at their desk, then I guarantee you will wake up. The sheriff's office at the stand has 1,800 officers with AR-15s in their trunk. I was opposed against that idea from the beginning. But with all those AR-15s out there, not one of those lives was saved in that classroom. Don't think about it, folks. I'm not taking anybody's weapon from them, but I'm saying let's use some common sense here. You're not going to dictate my common sense as sheriff. When it comes to the little ones, I care about those children, and my heart goes out. I mean, it's not like we haven't learned our lesson, right? Samuel, come on, folks. We're allowing people to dictate what happens in our community that don't even live in our communities, folks. I'm the sheriff that wants to give you your community back, and I'm with you on that. Enough is enough.
Thank you. Mr. Clark.
Yes, in reference to Uvalde, let me just say, as law enforcement officers, we gotta go in. We signed on, we gotta go in. That was a tragedy that happened. I had the opportunity to serve as the school safety specialist for Duval County Public Schools, and I had the opportunity to write every safety rule and every safety procedure for our schools. I'm highly confident that we are in a good position here in Duval County. When it comes to assault weapons, yes, I'm a gun owner. I believe the Second Amendment, but I think we should have reasonable gun laws when it comes to assault rifles, because over and over again we keep hearing that. And here in Florida, what they're trying to pass in Florida is called constitutional carry. That's different from open carry. With open carry, most cities who have open carry require you to have a concealed weapons permit, so we know who you are and there are restrictions. What they're trying to pass in Florida, if you're of age to buy a gun, just strap it on, you're talking about the Wild Wild West. I am deeply opposed to constitutional carry. I really don't like open carry because we have enough issues going on with guns and violence in our community. It's going to make our job harder as a law enforcement agency. And you think about all the private businesses that they don't know who is who coming into businesses with open firearms. That is a bad idea, and we need to make sure that the best we can that doesn't happen here in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. And Assistant Chief Berg.
There's a lot of things been said that I agree with. As a mother, seeing our young people slaughtered in schools too is devastating. I believe too that we have to, I am a gun owner. I support the Second Amendment as well, but I think that we have to make sure that guns are out of the hands of criminals in our streets. And I'll just say this too, because I just heard something about, Cummings mentioned something about the AR-15s. Over the years, we have criminals on these streets, so we have had to really upgrade our weapons, because you cannot go to a battle with a Glock 40 when you have criminals on the streets that have AR-15. So police officers have to have the necessary weapons to keep our community safe. So, and as it relates to the open carry, I'm concerned about that. So, but as a sheriff, I'm here to enforce the law. And if that is passed here, we're going to do our due diligence to make sure our community is safe.
Thank you.
All right, back to you.
It's not in the rules.
I'm going to take my position out of context.
You can answer that in the next question, which you start. You're going to be starting this question number 2. Next question. Jeff.
Some communities allow citizens arrest.
Can you, sorry Jeff, can you speak up so that Ms. Berger can hear you?
I'll tell about that.
You used to be a teacher. Get
Some
it back.
communities allow citizens arrest. I'm going to ask the sheriff people, do we have it here? And if so, are you in favor of it?
No. We saw that work out in Georgia. No, I'm not in favor of it at all.
Or somebody sees something committing a crime, but police are nowhere around.
Well,
Okay, wait. Can Josh repeat the question?
Yes, sure.
Oh, you didn't hear it. Jeff, come to the mic.
Right there.
Pick up this,
Jeff.
It's behind
Right
you.
there.
Some communities allow citizens arrest, and I'm asking the sheriff's candidate what they think of that. First of all, we have it here, and what they think of it. And if a crime is being committed, you're a person, a civilian is observing it, and the police are nowhere around, should a citizen be allowed to arrest someone? Some cities have it.
Excellent question.
Now you're here, on the table.
I have a really deep mouth. My wife tells me that all the time.
Okay. I'm going to ask that question just a second. Let me answer that question on that AR-15 question real quick. With AR-15, folks, I want to see the data on how many of those 1,800 officers that actually affected an arrest with that AR-15. Okay? Well, the militarization of our police force is just a no-no. You don't want to do that. That's how that's how communist China and Russia sneaks up on America, folks. When you weaponize your police force and your police force turns on you. In this case, you don't have to worry about that JSO out of hate you, but it can happen in America, folks. It really can. So our officers have shotguns for close combat situations, so they can deal with that issue. So I don't support that. Number 2, to answer your question, no citizens arrest. No, because more than likely, and statistics will back this up, the citizen winds up becoming a victim. Okay? Because they don't have the training that the officers go through to actually effect an arrest without injuring themselves or someone else. Okay? And these situations are deadly. And I don't want you to become a victim unnecessarily. And I get my deputies, the solution to it is to get my deputies to the scene quickly and improve these response times. So we're going to do just that with the Public Accountability Board and Oversight.
Thank you. No follow-up, Jeff.
Is it legal here? No, is what I'm asking. Could a citizen do it for
Mr.
something?
Clark.
Allow it something.
Thank you. So the current state law do allow citizens some latitude to detain people with reasonable force until they arrive with law enforcement. But things have changed tremendously. More people with guns, more people with bad attitudes, more people who don't want to be stopped. I do not recommend that citizens try to make a citizen's arrest. We can look at the situation with Trayvon, we can look, Mark, we can look at the situation happening in Georgia. The best thing to do now, we all have cell phones, call the police, get a description, stay at safe distance, get a tag number, and let the police do their job. It's dangerous enough for the officers, and it would be extremely more dangerous for the citizen to try to get involved to stop someone. Because you don't know the law, and you may think that it's a felony, it's a misdemeanor, you may think it's one thing, so it's not recommended that citizens take the law into their own hands and just let the sheriff's office handle the situation.
Thank you. Assistant Chief Burton.
There we go. The simple answer is I agree with what the panel was saying. I would not recommend citizens to get involved. We are constantly encouraging citizens not to get involved, not to put themselves in danger, in harm's way, but to call us and allow us to, effect an arrest. So we see this all the time. We just saw it today where a citizen was able to call in a robbery to a store. So he didn't go in and try to intervene, but instead he flagged down a police officer and we were able to apprehend a robbery suspect of a robbery in progress. So I just think we have to continue to encourage citizens to make sure if they see something, they say something and call us.
Thank you. Okay, so for question 3, we're going to start with Mr. Clark. I'm going to actually recognize a...
Oh, you never responded.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, sir. Mr. Jefferson.
I'll have to agree with all of my former colleagues that we don't want citizens endangering themselves, because a lot of times when you try to do that, the person that you're trying to arrest recognizes that you're not law enforcement and they're going to resist, and it's going to escalate, and that puts you in danger, that puts the other person in danger. Now, if somebody's breaking in my house or breaking into my car or whatever, and I'm able to grab them and detain them, that's one thing. If they get away, they get away. But I still would recommend that. I spent years with News for JAX as well as Action News talking about this and how you keep yourself safe. You get a good description, you get the direction of travel, what they're wearing, height and weight, give all that to the police, and let the police handle it. Officers go through months and months of training for this. We don't want to endanger our citizens who have no training and put themselves in harm's way.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Now we will move on to question number 3 with Mr. Clark. And Stephanie Moore has had her hand up on the chat, so we are going to recognize her and have her ask her question.
Thank you for calling on me. I live on the west side, so I couldn't get all the way over to the beach. My question is more a comment. I've listened to all 4 of the candidates, and I've been very impressed. I think any one of you could do a good job as our sheriff. My concern is that for Democrats having to pick 1 out of 4, are we going to shoot ourselves in the foot by diluting our Democratic vote, which will allow the Republican to win the race?
To answer that question,
You got one decision and have just one person?
thank you for that question. I don't think it will cause us any difficulty. Yes, no one will probably get 51% of the vote, but when we look at the Republican candidate in the race, that person has some challenges to overcome. The main one, other than his experience, and we look at this person being over all the violent crime and homicides, the violent crime task force, we look at the issues of crime in the city. The issue of residency is going to be an issue with that person to unequivocally prove that they lived in Duval County for 183 days prior to June 17. So I think experience and qualification is going to be the biggest factor to choose the next sheriff, someone ready to come in on day 1. And when all the people of Jacksonville, with all the violent crime and murders, they want a qualified sheriff, regardless of policy, to come in on day 1 to do the job. And when you look at my qualifications, I think that they will choose me as the most qualified, ready candidate on day 1 for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Chief Burton.
So what I would say is that I was the first one to get in this race over a year ago. And up to date, I've raised over $1.1 million, and I have the most diverse support across all party lines. I think that it's important that voters understand that my opponents, all of them have been retired from JSO for over 10 years. 2 of my opponents have never achieved rank. So you have to really ask yourself, who truly has the pulse of this agency? Who really has the pulse of these police officers? And I'll tell you, my record speaks for itself. Last year, after decades of violent crime on the rise, we saw a 4% reduction in crime citywide. Under my leadership, we saw a historic 16% reduction in crime. And if you're living in this city and you're concerned about violent crime, I am the one that has a proven record of being able to keep you safe.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you. There was 5 and then there will be 1. Unless, as the young lady proposed the question, unless it just divides us and it goes to the Republican. So you have a choice. Everybody up here is qualified. You have to make a choice. My recommendation is for you to choose a person who is not using community policing or being in the community as a good talking point, but a person who's been in the community, who's proven, a person who can go anywhere of the 850 square miles in Duval County and be recognized and be respected, and they will listen. That candidate is Ken Jefferson. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, and Dr. Cummings.
Okay, excellent. So all Democrats out there, I know it's a unitary election, but hey, if I knew I had to raise $1 million to get in this race, I probably would be in front of you right now. Okay? I want you to think about who bought your sheriff when they gave him $1 million, folks. I want you to think about that for a second. That same candidate that raised $1 million won't even support the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, nor will she support your ability to have a seat at that table inside the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. She's not for civilian review boards, but she is owned by the Republican Party. That's a fact. So all of us are uniquely qualified for the job. I'll put my credentials against anyone in. In fact, my credentials are online at TonyCummingsForSheriff.com. You can scrutinize them. They've been there for 9 years, folks. No, they have. They have. I'm an old military guy. I'm very, very disciplined. And I want those officers to be just as disciplined when they're serving you and protecting you, and they should never forget that. So we have a lot of work to do, and I hope we don't split the vote. I hope we coalesce around a candidate, but I want to be that candidate come August 23rd.
Looking at the clock, we have time for one last question. Eileen. Sorry, Billy. She got her hand up. Oh,
Wait, you're asking so much tonight.
Our 3 beach police officers speak very highly of the collaboration with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. How do you see your role in working with the beaches in addition to July 4th and other major holidays?
So the first person to answer is Assistant Chief Berg.
Josh, can you repeat that question? I could barely hear it. I heard something about the beaches.
Right into the mic. What role do you see?
Direct.
What role do you see the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office having formally with the Three Beaches communities, in addition to the great service you give us over the holidays?
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So the beaches community is a vital part of Jacksonville's success. We must ensure that they have a seat at the table with our agency on crime problems and solutions citywide. And I can tell you, as I just retired 3 months as a zone commander over there, so I personally work closely with them, and I feel like the relationship has been very positive. And as a sheriff, I would increase coordinated training with agencies and certainly more regularly scheduled meetings with the personnel in the beaches. So ultimately, I think that we have a very good relationship, and I want to continue to strengthen that.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you. As Makisha said, there's already a good relationship with the beaches, the chiefs, as well as the officers officers there. Jacksonville, of course, covers more territory than all the beaches, so we always have to work together. Yes, the sheriff's office and his officers during the holidays, during this special events that's going on, but we will be readily available to assist anytime that any one of the beaches police department calls us. We'll be there ready to help them out as well.
Dr. Cummings. Dr. Cummings.
Excellent. I want to make sure we have a strong bond and relationship with the beaches police, because it's necessary for the entire Jacksonville community. What I'd like to see happen is we more closely align our policies and procedures with one another. And we do that through training, active training, interdepartmental training, send our officers over to Jax Beach, send them to our location to make sure that we're understanding what the needs are for both communities, because we're so closely tied together. Something happens out at the beach, we feel it out in the city. Something happens in the city, we feel it out at the beach. So I think we have to double down on that effort. And I keep coming back to this because this is critically important. That public accountability office inside the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office will also benefit the folks out here at Jacksonville Beach, because you guys will be in on that policy and information and that data dump that comes out every single day, and you can have real-time information that you can use in your community. So it benefits, it's win-win for both sides.
Thank you. Mr. Berg.
I've personally gone down to the beach and met with all 3 beaches mayors. I've met with all 3 police chiefs at the beach to try to find out what is it that the sheriff's office have been doing for them in the past, and what can they do for them in the future. The biggest thing they told me was, you need to understand, at the beach, there's a thing they call the beach culture. How do you understand the beach culture? They like their independence. Let them have their independence. What I committed to them is, when I become sheriff, that I will give them whatever resources they need when they need it without hesitation. And we committed to regularly meet to talk about what other issues and concerns that we have. And just one last thing I want to say. I retired in 2010 from the sheriff's office, but I didn't leave Duval County. I didn't leave law enforcement. I went to the airport as their chief of police, and I worked very closely with the sheriff's office. And then I went to the school police department in Duval County, and I worked very closely with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Yes, I've been gone from the sheriff's office for 12 years, but I've not been out of law enforcement not until September 10th of last year. So the experience and qualifications for sheriff matters. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've made it through the question. We have about 5 more minutes left, so we're going to move to closing statements. So we're going to hear from all of our candidates in alphabetical order. Each will have 1 minute to close the forum with why we, the voters of Duval County, should elect them as our next Duval County Sheriff. We're going to start, like I said, in alphabetical order. So Assistant Chief Burton, you have the floor.
First, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to participate tonight. We don't have time to wait for someone to get caught up to speed on how to lead this agency of over 3,000 employees with a $500 million budget. We don't have time to wait for someone to gain the respect of this new generation of officers and build relationships in this community. I shared with you 70% of our agency, they need a new type of leader. I know what needs to be done. I know how to do it, and I know who to do it with, because I've literally been doing it for decades. I am the change that we need. Once reputation, record, and results matter in this race, your vote matters in this race. My name is Lakeisha Burton, and I'm asking for your vote to be your next sheriff. Thank you.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you for the Beach Democratic Club for giving us this opportunity. Very simply, experience and qualification matter. Having a vision for the city to reduce murders and violent crime matters. Being a bold leader willing to go out of the box and do out of the box ideas matter. I have 4 years of law enforcement, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, the airport, the school police. We need a bold sheriff that's ready to lead a bold city. All these other candidates have worked for me during my time at the Sheriff's Office. I know them all personally. We need to make sure that we choose the best leader at this time to lead this city to where it needs to be as far as reducing crime in the city, reducing the fear of crime, and building trust in our communities, working in communities to bring programs to our youth so that we can once be that bold city that we desire. It is my goal as sheriff to serve every person, to be a sheriff willing to go everywhere to serve everyone, to make Jacksonville truly that one city. I'm Wayne Clark, vote August 23rd, Wayne Clark for sheriff. Thank you.
Dr. Cummings.
I also want to thank the Beaches Democrat Club for hosting this event. First of all, give the audience a round of applause. It's very important that people engage their elected officials before they take office, so they'll understand exactly what to expect when they're in office. I'm a 28-year law enforcement veteran. I hold a doctoral degree in organizational leadership and a master's in organizational management. I have military discipline that I want to make sure my officers have when they're serving the interests of the public. The difference between me and these other candidates, the biggest difference is you. I am committed to bringing a public accountability office to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office with you there. Folks, it is a game changer. Tonight when you go home and do your research, look at Atlanta. Their public accountability office is in its 2-year infancy. It's often called the police accountability, but I kind of like the public accountability because I don't want negative stigma on the police officers unnecessarily. Because we're trying to weed out that 1% that's making the whole profession look bad. It's not the 99% officers, that 1%. So I'm Dr. Tony Cummings. Go to TonyCummingsForSheriff.com, and I would appreciate your support on August 23rd. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you to the Makisha Democratic Club for hosting this event and giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts, concerns, and our vision. I'm Ken Jefferson. I'm a lifelong resident here. I'm not a stranger to any of you all. I entered this race simply because I've traveled all over Duval County, and I'm still traveling all over Duval County, listening to you, listening to your concerns, and having a vision of what we want to have our city look like. I entered this race simply because from the outpour of the public, everywhere I go, in restaurants, churches, gas stations, in public, people stop me and say, please run. We need transformational leadership in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. You can bring that. All of us are qualified to do this job. But when you go in that ballot booth, in that voting booth, consider the one that's been around a long time, doing what I've been doing. But I did need 2010 as well, and I remain relevant in this community. I'm all over this city. So August 23rd, please consider voting for Ken Jefferson as your next sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for attending tonight's Democratic Women's Information Network and Beaches Democratic Club Forum. What a great opportunity to hear directly from our amazing candidates. I will remind everyone, we also asked the candidates to answer 2 additional questions that they submitted answers to in writing. We will be providing the answers of these questions along with those 2 additional questions online on the Beaches Democratic Club website. So please go online to our website, check out those questions, ask the candidates questions if you're still making up your mind on who to vote for, and make sure you're informed and you go vote on August 23rd. Or before that, ballots are already out. And I want to thank the candidates as well for sharing your vision for the future of Jacksonville's public safety. Please all, let's thank the candidates one more time. And with that, the Beaches Library is going to kick us out. So we hope you all have a great evening and a safe trip home. Be safe.